I'm Shane Redmond from Horse Racing Ireland, and joining me here to have a quick look at the card on the opening day of the Irish National Hunt Festival at Punchestown are Pat Brennan from Tote Ireland and David Jennings of the Racing Post. Pat, I'll start with you if I can. We've discussed this before. A very big week for Tote Ireland.
Yes, huge week for us, Shane. We've got some great guarantees for the whole week. We're guaranteeing the pick six for €50,000 each day. We're guaranteeing the place pot for €50,000 each day, and we have a €20,000 rollover into the jackpot today, which we're comfortably expecting to reach 40k.
And as I say, we'll go through this pretty quickly now. 340, the traditional opener over the banks, and traditionally Enda Bulger does very well here. Nina Carberry rides Wish Ye Didn't. Is that a banker?
I'd say so. It's really want to get the punters off to a strong start. It's a specialist race. I'm not a great fan of these races from a punting point of view, but Enda Bulger and Nina obviously do very well in this, so Wish You Didn't a banker for me.
Dave, would you agree with that, Enda, to get favourite backers off to a winning start?
I would indeed, yeah. I was down actually with Enda last week to do a feature ahead of Punchestown, and it's just fascinating. Like, his whole year revolves around this week, and I think for a lot of these horses, probably an afterthought will come here. It's not the highest quality race in the world. This horse has been laid out for this race for possibly the last 3 or 4 months. He's got his own banks course. It's unbelievable. 23 fences, so that's a serious advantage. Probably most people would know that, but I only realised it last week just how good of a setup he had. And this horse probably would have won at Clonmel earlier in the year. Fell at the last that day. Nina takes over from Ray Barron today. I see its odds on now. I'd imagine I'd be very disappointed if Wish You Didn't was beaten. And
whatever about that favourite, surely the second race, with long odds on favourite, Duvan for Willie Mullins.
Yeah, look, Duvan it looks really special. You know, he's done everything right. I think it was, I suppose, when he won here earlier in the year, we realised just how good he was. That was a breathtaking performance that day. And at Cheltenham, you know, he went right away from Sizing John, who was his biggest opponent again. You know, he's 1-4 and Sizing John is 4-1. So there's probably, you know, for 4 lengths or whatever it was, there's a big difference in the prices, but very hard to pose Duvan. He looks the real deal, and he looks another kind of banker for favourite backers.
And is Sizing John the one for the exacta?
I think so. If you look at the Cheltenham form, the one concern I had with Duvan was, would he go on the ground at Cheltenham? He always struck me as a horse that needed it sort of hock deep, but he seemed to go through. It'll be a bit faster now today, so I'd be interested to see. I'd say Sizing John will probably get a bit closer. Okay. So the much more open race now will be the handicap hurdle, the Killashee handicap hurdle. The one I like here is Henry Higgins. What do you make of that one? Yeah, it looks like it's been laid out. A typical JP McManus. Hasn't been out in a while. One I like at the bottom of the handicap is X Squared, having his first run for Sabrina Harty. Will definitely light the ground. Decent price, about 14-1, and won first time out for the last couple of seasons, so that's the one for me.
Dave, plenty of chances here.
Yeah, there's 25 runners, Shane. I did a lot of studying in this race and I've narrowed it down to 24, so I don't think Fruits of Glory can win, so if that's any good to anybody. But yeah, look, it's really open, so it is. The few that I fancy in it, I think Sizing Cadalco off 135 is quite well handicapped. Thought he ran quite well in Ferriers behind some article. Travelled well that day, had been novice chasing, just didn't go according to plan. Fell here early on in the year. He's just a horse. I like the profile. He races prominently, and I think in these races you need to be fairly handy. The other horse that I've thought for a long time was really well handicapped is Waxy's Dargle, but he's let me down so many times. I fancy him in the county hurdle. The rain that fell yesterday won't bother him one bit, so if I was to take 2 against the field, it'd probably be Sizing Cadalco and Waxy's Dargle.
And the 4th race then, the big one of the day, Boyle Sports Champion Chase. The betting suggests this is wide open too.
Wide open, yeah. I said to somebody yesterday, Champagne Fever, I think he's harder to work out than a Tiram, I think. I just can't figure him out. I think I've backed him maybe 3 or 4 times in his career and he's ran a shocker, so he might win, but he won't carry any of my money. By process of elimination, I've landed on Hidden Cyclone. I spoke to Shark yesterday, and Shark is the most enthusiastic and positive man you'll ever meet, but he thinks that the blinkers have completely sharpened up Hidden Cyclone. You know, we won a grade 2 early on in the year here. He fell in the race last year, but I think he's probably due a grade 1, and he's going to pick up one of these that is not real top class. And you know, if the blinkers do make a little bit of a difference, I think he's probably the one. But probably at a bigger price, Felix Younger might be the one. He looks the 3rd string of Willie Mullins, but he'd be of the 3 Willie Mullins, I'd be surprised if he didn't finish ahead of Champagne Fever or Twin Light. But I think the percentage play is probably Hidden Cyclone.
It's Maloney for me. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I stuck at Maloney as well. Like David, a process of elimination. A lot of horses here coming off poor runs, particularly at Cheltenham and some for Aintree. I like the way Davy Russell seems to have found the key to Maloney. I was very impressed when I was at Naas and Ferry House the 2 days he won, and Davy just seems to know how to get the horse to get his head in front, so that's the one for me.
The Land Rover bumper is difficult.
Very difficult. A lot of whispers going around. I know that a colleague of ours, the very shrewd Kevin O'Ryan, gave Petit Monchoir as a charity bet in Naas yesterday, and he'd have his finger on the pulse with Gordon Elliott. So it'll be interesting to see how Petit Monchoir. How's my pronunciation there, Shane?
Doing pretty good.
Yeah, I did French in school, yeah. And Petit Monchoir, I think he'll be the one for money. He was workmanlike rather than impressive in his point to point, but I thought, Gordon's bumper horses, everybody talks about Willie Mullins' bumper horse, but Gordon's have been terrific this year. I think he has nearly a 40% strike rate, so he'd be one. And I spoke to Noel Mead yesterday, and he thinks a lot of Red Giant. Snow Falcon was second in this race last year. Similar, same owner, similar type of horse. So I think Red Giant at double figures might run into the money maybe.
And Art of Synergy was one we were talking about earlier on. Had a run over hurdles.
Yeah, had a run over hurdles in a strong looking maiden at Navan last month. To quote Kevin O'Ryan again, a trappy looking race. But I like the way Sandra Hughes takes the old Desi Hughes tactic of maiden hurdle first and dropping it back into a bumper. I think that's valued at about 4 or 5 to 1.
So earlier in the day we would have had Dovan as a banker. Another Willie Mullins hot pot looks to be Don Poley.
Yeah, it's certainly very impressive at Cheltenham, and a horse that's improved no end this season. They never seem to be able to get to the bottom, and generally first off the bridle, always pushed along, but just keeps finding and finding and finding. It reminds me a lot of Synchronised, a horse from a number of years ago. Very similar way of running. Difficult to know what's going to finish second. Apache Stronghold and Valser Lead have had very hard seasons. I'd imagine Apache Stronghold probably the greater finisher, so that'll do for the exact.
Well, the one I like for the exact is Wounded Warrior, Noel Mead's horse.
Yeah, it has a good chance. Again, a lot of these horses coming off the end of a long season, so it's wide open for the exacta, so it's take your pick.
Very good. You can't see beyond Don Poley.
No, I think I said yesterday, he's like this tough centre half that you'd hate to go for a header with, because you're just going to come out the worst of it. He's such a, he's a real battler. I think probably for in-running punters he's probably one, because he's going to come off the bridle, at various stages, and he's going to look in trouble, but it just seems to be, just gets himself out of every hole. Look, he looks the real deal. For the forecast, I actually think with the bit of rain that's come, I wouldn't be surprised if Wounded Warrior was the one to follow him home. He definitely stays, whereas the others have a few question marks about him, so it'd be Don Poley to be followed home by Wounded Warrior for me.
Yeah, I like Wounded Warrior too. You're a big fan of Noel Mead.
I am a big fan of the Noel Mead team, but they ran pretty poor at Fairyhouse. I think he's hoping that they'll come back into form. I know Ned Buntline was going quite well when he fell in Aintree, so hopefully they'll come back into a bit of form. I think Wounded Warrior, I just think the race will suit. I think they'll go a strong gallop. Patchy Stronghold and Valser Lido, they've had very hard seasons, the two of them, so I just think he might be the one just to pick up the pieces, but I'd be very surprised if he beat Don Poley.
Okay, and a quick look at the last race. Very difficult again, a wide open bumper.
It's very difficult. It's surprising to see a bumper run with no Willie Mullins entry. The one that has the strongest form by far that has run is Sandra Hughes's, with Katie Walsh on board, so that'll do for me for the Getting Out Stakes.
What do you make of the last?
Yeah, I know he's probably overrates his horses, but Shark thinks a lot of Camlan. I was surprised it was double figures really, because it was sent off favourite for Cheltenham Bumper in January and travelled well that day, and Barry Garrity thought it was a decent enough horse that day. I think he's improved a lot since then, so at double figures I think Camlan might be the one.
Well, I think that concludes our look at the first day. Great days racing ahead, and we hope you all back plenty of winners.